Good evening, everyone. Welcome to March public meeting. My name is Henley Samuel, President of Gungahlin Community Council. I'd like to welcome each one of you, especially the people who come from different places, and I want to thank my team as well. We got the members from the executive committee I would like to welcome as well. And if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the tribe. And if you're watching on Facebook, thanks for joining us. We got a jam-packed agenda for tonight. So today, all our meetings are available on Facebook. So if you want to re-watch or want to do some more analysis, you can watch our previous meeting as well. And then please follow us on our social media page for more information as we update those pages. And for tonight, we did a submission on the response to the ACT planning system review and reform project. So we're going to talk about some of those ones, and we're going to also talk about the petition to call on the ACT government to provide a new police station for Gungahlin. I think that's a very essential and critical one. This was an action item we took from the last public meeting, and we took it seriously because we had a presentation from the police, and we think it's a very essential thing that we need to have, and we have to support our friends in blue. So we'll talk about those things. And then we have speakers for tonight. We have Phil. We're going to talk about another petition as well, which is happening around KC. I'm not going to go in detail because we're going to go in detail with those petitions later stage. And then we're going to get an update on the unleased block of lands in KC, between Kingsland Parade and Oz Park Drive from Rod Baxter from the EPSD. And then also we're going to get some updates on the Gungahlin Community Centre from the Judge Studio. So that's the agenda for tonight. And then we'll take questions as we go. Mostly we wait till the end, but if you think something you need to talk about in the middle, we're happy to take questions as well. So I want to just talk about the planning system submission that we did. In short, the current planning system, I don't think it's delivering the mixed development, which meets community expectation. And we lost a lot of our valuable places in terms of Hovis scores all being converted into the residential places. So the result is loss of valuable floor space that could be home to small business and solely needed facilities that benefit the wider community. It is unclear whether this has been addressed in the draft territory plan. And the planning controls in the relevant percent codes rarely require commercial adaptable ground floors or active retail frontage on the mixed use side. So that's another thing. And then SLA, we don't think they have put in place a lease condition that would require or actively encourage commercial or community use on mixed use sites. So we have a lot of issues with the mixed use sites at the moment. Because we tend to see a pattern where they just put a coffee shop and then they call it as a mixed-use size these days. The relevant objectives of CZ5 mixed-use zone in the current territory plans are vaguely worded, and there's open to a lot of interpretation as well. So we recommended include an initiative to complete the Gungahlin RTL road network, so duplication of Osborne Drive. We recommended duplication of Clariam's Drive, Gungahlin Drive, Merabi Drive, and all those things, which I think it's a key thing. And if you all agree, if you live in Gungahlin, these roads need immediate attention. And GCC strongly support the focus on the future employment opportunity in the town centre. Today we saw an article about the Department of Employment, I think DUA. They're going to go and get a new office in the CBD. Gungahlin would be a perfect spot for those kind of infrastructure. And previously we had a different government in the state and in the federal, but now we have the same, so I think the better things can be done if they work in one accord. So GCC strongly support the focus on the future employment opportunities, particularly in the last, we see the last few years. We've been concentrating, and we want a detailed plan, and we want to understand what's the plan for the future, and I don't think there's any plan at the moment. Overall, the draft Gungahlin strategy lacks a true strategic vision. It does not articulate a future state for Gungahlin, and much of identified works and projects that are already underway or are business as usual. So basically, we're not really happy with what they call. what they got at the moment. So that's the submission we did. I think at some stage we may be able to publish that on our website. So I'll leave it there. So this is a very hot topic. How many of you here for the last public meeting here personally or in Facebook you watched? So we had excellent. So we had police from the Gungahlin police station who came. They want us to come and do a presentation, and that presentation, it's not really. It was very concerning in terms of what they're going through in terms of the infrastructure and the resourcing. To give you some stats, ACT has the lowest police to population ratio in Australia. For the city experiencing significant growth, the number and resource of police are not growing with it. As you all agree how fast we are growing in Gungahlin. And that's as a impact in Gungahlin, because Gungahlin is growing really fast, and with our population estimated in the census 2021, it's 87,550 as per the census 2021. But during the COVID, you can see a lot of people moved in, and we think as high as 100,000, according to the post-COVID estimates, people live in Gungahlin. So because of this, the population growth, and we don't have a capacity in the police station because they don't have the infrastructure what they need to have. So at the moment they are running on a low resource. It's common for the team to operate at a lower capacity due to the shortage and lack of resources. Maybe they will have a sergeant and 4 to 5 members, but other stations have 6 teams and they have a sergeant and 8 members. So there's a huge gap if you compare within other districts in Gungahlin and within the other districts in ACT. If you compare with Gungalin's running under less resource, and overall ACT has a less resource, but particularly Gungahlin has been impacted really much on this. Gungahlin police station is the smallest and most under-resourced of all police stations. The facilities are inadequate and do not allow the growth. So we can't expand on the current police station. That's how it is at the moment. And they showed me some of the pictures, which is terrific, which is kind of I got shocked. It looks like a startup company. They start the company in the garage. How the startup companies they do. It looks like that there's no room for storage, which I'm going to talk about, in a minute. But those pictures says 1,000 words, and I don't think it's not the quality that we expect in our workplaces. I think the police deserve a better infrastructure. The building facility, there's no privacy for victims of crimes or witness or person in the custody, because there's no sufficient place for those separated rooms. So there's no dedicated rooms for meeting rooms, dining rooms, or storage facilities. Everything happens at the same table. So you could imagine the investigation table would be your lunch. You will be eating the lunch on the same table as well. So it's very, very awkward situation. And there are often water leaks. There you go. So the water leaks as well happening in the police station. And welcome to the modern first world. There are often water leaks in the station roof during periods of heavy rain. It is not adequately heated or cooled. And we know that Canberra, it's very hot in summer and very cold in winter. If we don't have this kind of infrastructure, I'm feeling very bad for them, because I don't know how they work in that kind of environment. And it lacks victim support space and an additional interview room facility as well. So Gungahlin Police, because of this low resourcing, they're working really hard, and overworked, sick leave instances has gone up. People couldn't take their annual leave because of the low resources. They couldn't do annual leave and stuff. So it became like a kind of a work-life balance is not balanced at that place. As a result, police officers are subject to additional burden of stress, welfare issues, etc., as you can imagine. And Gungahlin community is dissatisfied with the low resource level to deal with, because there are so many issues happening in Gungahlin, and with the low issue and a low resource with the police, and they cannot do what they're supposed to do, and they want to do it. They want to help the community. They want to do the work the best way. But with the limited resource, they've been doing all the things that they can do. And there are water leaks, which I covered. So on behalf of the petition, what we are trying to tell the government, we want to make a call, and I know some of the MLAs probably watching, or maybe you are here, this meeting. We want the government to provide an improved new office space within 6 months. You might be thinking 6 months is like how can it be possible? We don't care how can it be possible. It's their job to get it possible and get it done. And that's what we wanted to achieve through this petition. And this issue is not the issue that just popped out just on one night. It's been an ongoing issue. And this police station was constructed, I think, from 1998 from my memory. And it's been a long time and there's no upgrades. And you can also imagine at the moment the SES, ambulance, fires all in one place. So this petition is very crucial and very important to support them because they tried all the channels. They couldn't achieve any result or they couldn't move anywhere. So this is the only way we can get things done. So your signatures matters a lot. So what we are asking, provide an improved new office space within 6 months so that it can be occupied and it can be established. Increase the number of police officers to meet operational needs in ACT budget for 2023-24. And we are also proposing the increase in the budget throughout ACT. So we are not just saying it's a Gungahlin related issue. Of course, it's impact Gungahlin in a large way, but we are saying, this is going to cause a domino effect throughout the ACT. So we need to fix the entire system. So we are asking for that as well. So if you're living in outside Gungahlin, if you're thinking, why should you sign this petition? This is a good reason for everyone to sign this petition. And develop and commit to a timeline of increasing ACT policing resources to meet the demands of the growing Gungahlin community. And we want a proper community consultation to be done as part of mitigating this problem. So these are the key points, and if you had seen, we have posted this on the Facebook. There was some media attention. We were on the Wind News. So it's getting some attention. So currently, I think, how many petitions we got? 240. So we are approaching almost nearing 250 signatures. I think it's not even 48 hours. So that shows how much thing.
Where do you want a new police station, and where do you want them to put it?
So that's, government will decide where it needs to go. What we are saying, we need to fix that problem and it needs to go somewhere. But those ones, I think the EPSD will, or the ACT government will respond to where it's going to go. At this stage, my thinking was, as per the government plan, the SCS and ambulance and all these people will go to the Mitchell at one stage. That was the proposal they made ages back, and then they want to expand this one. I'm not sure about the progress. At one stage, they said it's going to be, some of the things going to be in the KC, so we don't really know. So the concern is we want them to fix and propose a solution.
How many extra police do you want and why?
Whatever it needs for the community. I'm not sure how many for the population growth, but I think what we know, it's lowest at the moment compared to the other districts. To start with, it's better to start with, similar to what Belconnen have or Tuggeranong have to start with.
Look, and it said that in Gungahlin there were 961 offences in the last quarter, down from 1,406, and reports of assaults and property damage decreased, although reports of burglaries remain unchanged.
Do you live in Gungahlin? Do you?
I live over in Casey. I spend quite a bit of time.
No, do you live in Gungahlin now?
Well, my partner lives in Gungahlin.
Yeah, but do you live in Gungahlin?
I'd spend at least 50%.
No, I'll just ask no question.
I live in Belconnen.
Yeah, so you live in Belconnen, right?
Well,
So
spend money in Gungahlin.
yeah, you can spend money in Gungahlin, but I'm saying the question is, this is a serious issue, and we need the police station, and all your questions about where they're going to put and stuff, it's all great question, but we're not going to answer it. I think let the government decide where they want to put it. Darren?
I mean, just in answer to your question,
Yeah.
I've seen numerous
Check. This one works. All right. Looks like the sound is back for the online people. Sorry, apologize if you're watching it online. We had some technical hiccups.
Whilst I agree that it's a noble thing to do to support the police, supporting the police has a flow-on effect to actually disincentivise or disadvantage the other users that are in that building. The idea that you can simply kick the other 4 services out of that building without there being somewhere for them to go. You have police in there who have overtaken all of the available space, which means the 2 volunteer organisations in there can't conduct formal training. They have to actually have a room hired somewhere else to undertake the work that goes on in there. So the only thing they can do is park their vehicles there and then come in and come out. So there's no ownership of that. So if the police are there, there's no question that that building isn't fit for purpose. Going back to even 2013, there have been plans for new stations across the Gungahlin that haven't been delivered. You need to be careful that if you kick all the other services out and there's got nowhere to go, there's discussion about moving ambulance and fire and rescue into a new building. But what's currently proposed is that the Rural Fire Service and the SES, who have been in that building for 25 years providing a free service to the community, a free service in their own time, are going to be moved into a second-hand building in Mitchell away from their membership base. It will delay the response for people to be able to get out and to do those things. So this idea that police are, everybody in that building is under-resourced and it doesn't fit. So not only do the police need a new station, but all of your emergency services need to be properly...
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone, I agree. I'm not sure. I'm one of the volunteers working with SES as well. So, I spend, and the same thing with the Gungahlin Community Council. It's a voluntary organisation as well. So I know how the volunteer work. I'm in that building, so I know how the SES has those resources, so I can see everything happening. We're not saying in anywhere in the petition that we need to kick any of those people. We're just saying they need to find some new infrastructure available for the police. And I hear you. I think everyone needs an upgrade in that building in terms of space or in terms of the equipment and stuff. So it probably, potentially, it might need to happen sometime. But at this stage, this one is very critical in terms of what they're going through and what we hear from the police, and that's why we are doing this one. So we got the linkage here. So if you want, please sign this petition and join the movement. Yep.
Sorry, on the last point, it is relevant that building was never designed to have the police in it. It was designed to be for emergency services, fire rescue, ambulance. Right? It was not designed to be the police station. That's why there's no public parking around it. Right? It was never designed to have the idea that the police would be there and the public would attend. That was a decision that was made late during the construction of it, and it's never been revisited since then. So I'd agree there should be no suggestion that other users move out. The police should be found more suitable premises and one that have much better public access in that state. Well, there's essentially only 2 public parking spots out the front of that building.
Yeah, what we heard from the police was it was started as a part-time police station in the beginning.
It was not designed to be a police
Yeah.
station. It was never designed to be a police station. They were put in there at the last minute. And it might have been a part-time station at the time, but it was not designed to be a police station. It was designed for ambulance.
Yeah. Dan?
I just wanted to make a statement that the Minister for Emergency Services is also the Minister for Planning. And so, I think he's well aware of the fact of this situation, and even whoever was in charge of the police station before this, I remember going back many years, was saying there was a feasibility study there about where a new police station was going. So if there's a problem with actually finding suitable locations for the other services or the police station itself, it's a failure of planning, because it's been in the pipeline for many, many years. And the Gungahlin Community Council has raised numerous issues over many times about having planning for the future in Gungahlin for facilities like that earmarked ready to go, so that when we have a situation like this, when we get to breaking point, we actually have somewhere to build these facilities. And so if there isn't a place, as you mentioned, for these facilities to go, again, it's in the ball court of the same minister who's the Minister for Emergency Services.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll put this link up again as we go through it. But we're going to go on to the next item. I want to welcome Phil. And it's going to be a petition night because it all starts with the planning. When the planning fails, this is what happens. And most of the time, the people who do the planning, I don't think that they've been to Gungahlin or they live in Gungahlin. But that impacts every single thing. Thanks, Phil. Over to you.
Just back on me. And the next one. Cool. Okay. So you can bring it up. Well, can we go back one? Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Gungahlin Community Council, and thank you for all of you for coming tonight. Tonight, I'm going to talk about Casey 2913, the poor infrastructure that we're facing at the moment, and the plans for a multi-storey tower, as per the photo that was in Riot Act some time ago. As I introduce myself, my name's Phil Essam. I'm a long-time resident of Casey. I was one of those that was sold a dream by the real estate agent on Horse Park Drive and said, would you like to buy a block of land and a house over there? Yes, I did. One thing led to another. Since about last September, I've been the unofficial convener of the Casey Region Residents Action Group. You'll find us on Facebook, and the link will be up later on and in the PowerPoint presentation. Tonight, I'm going to discuss what's proposed for Casey and what we're trying to do about it to highlight our concerns. Any questions, please ask at the end. Myself or one of the good Casey residents that are here will help me out. So this is another photo of what we're faced with down near the duck pond in Casey. Probably almost a triangle of multi-storey, 9 stories and one is 11 stories. I've got my own personal opinion on that, but that doesn't matter because personalities don't come into it, but yeah. The first thing we have to look at is the development application closes on the 14th of March. I'm encouraging, and we've got the link there, I'm encouraging as many people to give their feedback to the Development Authority on it. We can't tell people what to put, but have a read of all the documents. There's some documents, at most I would say is smoke and mirrors, some very ambiguous comments, and I think some of the documents for data has been changed a bit. So it needs your feedback. I can't tell you what to write, not on the 15th of March, but by the 14th of March. I know I'm going to be busy this weekend doing mine, so I better set a good example and do it. And the more development applications that go in, the more they're going to have to look at it and really assess and get other people to look at it and decide yes, no, maybe. I believe I was advised the other day that part of the planning process in the ACT was the National Capital Design Review Panel. It goes to these people before it gets released to the public for the pre-planning or the actual planning, etc. These are a couple of extracts from what the panel advised. First up, they said some increase in height could be supportable, e.g. 4 to 8 stories, not 9 to 11. However, any such proposal must demonstrate design excellence and clear public benefit that is not yet evident. I believe that is a very important part. The panel considers that further design development is required to provide a robust justification for the proposal's density and height, and recommends that the proposal return for further design review. This was June 2022. I don't believe it has gone back to this panel yet with any changes or further review. So I think that is very important for people to consider when they're looking at the Development Authority application. We've also got a petition going to the ACT Assembly. It was kindly sponsored this time by Suzanne Orr, one of our local MLAs, and I should mention that this time there has been wonderful bipartisan support from all the MLAs in this area. We decided, after looking at a bit of robust discussion on the Facebook group, the first commitment needs to be to fully duplicate Gungahlin Drive, Horse Park Drive and Clary Hermes Drive, which is very sensible to similar to some of the paperwork you guys have been putting in as well, which I thought was excellent, including interim measures to ease road congestion by converting the existing single lane roundabouts to dual lane. Those people that don't leave for work early, either by bus or car in the morning, get the same stuff every day. I know it's across Gungahlin, but perhaps that would help all of Gungahlin if those roads were fully duplicated. The next thing that we thought had to be looked at is survey the share paths and footpaths in and around the Casey Group Centre and widen them where necessary. I didn't even realise that one of the paths was smaller leading to the shopping centre till Mark showed me a few weeks ago. And particularly at the northern end of Kingsland Parade and on Gungahlin Drive that joins the Grove. You walk back up there if you decide you want to go for a coffee from walking past the Grove and the Monty Village. You have to basically dodge the traffic and run. And the third thing is we need improved public transport options, including greater frequency of local bus services. One of those for a start would be a bit of manipulating with Bus 24 that basically does a roundabout on every suburb, and that would take people from Casey to Belconnen and back, instead of having to get a bus to Gungahlin and then a bus to Belconnen, making for a very long day, especially if you're a one-car family. You've got an appointment at Calvary Hospital because that's a third bus. And yes, that was the third option, public transport options, including greater frequency of local bus services, especially on weekends. Out of 3 bus routes, we've probably got one good one, that's for 26. It's like winning the lotto if the 26 turns up first at Gungahlin to take you home after a long, long day. So in summary, the block and surrounding area needs to be built and developed. It's a bit overdue, it does look a bit tatty on occasions, but not what is being proposed. We don't want to see that wind tunnel, we don't want to see the North Wall. Philip, take your personal opinion out. How about 4 stories at most, or a community centre arts precinct? They are alternatives. Or we have a couple of stops with a new police station or state emergency services, etc. I would like to publicly thank the MLAs of Yarrabee for their bipartisan support of what we're trying to achieve. I hope this translates into a time commitment with the petition when it is presented to the Assembly. That, I believe, will be the next sitting is on the 21st. And so it will go, the petition has got 500 signatures, but it would be good. The more signatures we get now, the more people power that presents. What can you do, listening on Zoom tonight, here in the room, or watching me later on? Sign and share the petition before the 17th. have your say on the Development Authority application before the 14th, or join our action group on Facebook. There's almost 500 people on there now on that Facebook group. They're not going away in a hurry. I think there's going to be other petitions come out of it, especially with the expansion with another college being built down there, and basically they're going to have to keep working at it, and like keep working with the community council here, etc. So, any questions or comments? Dwayne.
What's the name of the Facebook group?
Casey Residents Action Group. If you type in that, you'll get pretty close, and you'll see my name on it. So, yeah, gentleman behind.
Yeah, we're a bit confused about the complex that they're proposing to build there at Casey. When we had a talk here before, they talked about a 9-storey tower, but the sign at the front says 1 9 and 2 11-storey
Yeah,
towers.
I don't know what you'd call it in a planning building architectural. It's like a triangle, and it's going to have 2 are of 9 stories, and the other one is of 11 stories. So I've looked at that area so many times, and I can't see how they're going to have to be taking a hell of a lot of dirt away from it, and that's one of my personal concerns. I can see the duck pond getting put off to one thing for a start. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
There's a commercial element of this as well. You're okay with the commercial element? The commercial shops?
Yeah, I guess on what I've seen and observed over the years, my personal opinion, it can't be too bad. It might be another 24-hour milk bar, as we called them in the old days, but mini supermarket, and it might be like the fish and chip shop they've got up at Gungahlin. So, yeah, wouldn't be too bad, but do we need 9, 11 stories above it? That's just my personal opinion.
Does the traffic from the 3 towers, does that go directly onto Horse Park or Prairie Homes, or does it go into Casey?
It goes, at the moment, I can't think of the name of the road. There's a road that goes past the far end of 7-Eleven, and it goes up to that roundabout, and then people will have to, if they don't put another extension on it, they will have to. What was that? Bentley Place. So, yeah. It's going to become very crowded. Yeah.
I know Clay Herman's drive is hard in the mornings as it is. I also know that it won't be just that development that'll be built there. There'll also be a school not very far away from there as well.
Yeah, I believe there's a college going to be added to the.
Be there, and also there's going to be an expansion to the retirement homes that are there as well. So you think
That could be nice for me in a couple of years.
in some ways it's not just traffic that's associated with that, it's holistically with these developments that have an impact, and from what I read, they basically admitted the fact that there will be some impact, and that they seem to be pushing it onto the government to do their own traffic study into the impacts of that. So how do you feel about that?
I don't 100% trust when they're going to do their own traffic studies. We've seen it ourselves. Mark's taken photos some mornings. I've seen it when I haven't left for town early or just hidden in my home office for the 3rd year running. But I hear the stories. I see the accident rates. It's going to be terrible. And probably one thing I didn't mention tonight is for parking in the area. They're providing an underground car park in the towers, but I know during construction there's going to be 200 tradesmen, God bless them, we love them, they're going to be parked in the shopping centre car park. Who knows what's going to happen when it's built, and then visitors are going to end up in the shopping centre car park. And
I mentioned that the solution to that was the fact that it was within riding distance to the light rail. Do you think that was a feasible solution? I mean, that was
I'm an ex-marathon runner a few years ago, and I would be struggling to ride my bike 3-4 days a week from Casey to Gungahlin anymore. I know I should still be fit, but osteo caught up, like all of us. No, I'd be struggling. So, yeah, I did get a chuckle with that. Mark or Maggie, was there anything I should have added tonight, or...?
Phil, I just think it's important to say that
Yeah.
it's important to mention that all development applications are assessed against the territory plan. So if people are interested in making a submission about this proposal, you do have to wade through the DA documentation. And that can be really daunting. It really is quite a struggle to go through those documents. But there's one in two in particular that you might want to look at. One is the statement against criteria, which is how the proponent has assessed the proposal against the territory plan, in particular the Commercial Zones Development Code. And the other is the proponent's report on the pre-DA community consultation process that was held last September. I think they're the documents that are the most interesting from the point of view of making a submission. I'm going to be focusing in my representation on the inadequacy of the pre-DA consultation. And I'm also going to be focusing on the issues of the height, the density, and the plot ratio, because these are things that are in the territory plan. Rule 45 of the code establishes a height limit for that site of 2 stories. The proposal is seeking approval for 3 buildings up to 11 stories, and I don't believe that the justification against the criteria for that is adequate. The next rule, number 46, has a maximum plot ratio of 100% or 1:1, and the proposal is seeking approval for a plot ratio of 5:1, so that's a 400% increase. Again, I don't think the justification is there against the criteria. A couple of other things, that the approved number of dwellings for that site under the State Development Plan is 58. This proposal is seeking an additional 161 dwellings, which is a 277% increase there. So, you know, there's a few things. Others are concentrating on the traffic issues. So I haven't really turned my mind to those. I think it's Phil's slide about the national capital design review panel. I think that's quite potent in that consultation with this panel for this scale of development is mandatory, and the panel wanted the proposal returned for further design review after changes were made, and no changes were made. So I think that's significant. The pre-DA consultation generated only 41 submissions, and I don't see that as evidence that the community was successfully engaged, and of those submissions, 2 to 1 were against the proposal, yet no further consultation was undertaken. And the consultation doesn't comply with government's pre-DA consultation guidelines, and I'll be addressing that in my submission as well. So that's just a few things about
The developers presented.
Yeah.
back in September.
Yeah. Thank you, Maggie. That's some excellent feedback and something for everyone to consider. I think in final for me, as per the petition for the police station, the Casey one, we've still got a week and a bit. Please sign it if you haven't signed it. It's on the PowerPoint presentation, which will be online, and please share it. 1,000 signatures would give a lot stronger message to the ACT Assembly than 610 signatures at the moment. So signatures are people power. And thank you everyone for coming tonight. Any more questions? Or thank you, Henley.
Thank you very much for what you guys have been doing as well, which we appreciate. Yeah, thank you. The next one, we're going to have Rod Lasco for update on the unlisted block on the land in Casey, and followed by updates about the
Hi, Nick. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Look, this is going to be very brief. I think a lot of you have probably heard that the government's looking at how to utilise the land, not to the south of Phil's duck pond, as you described it, that area to the north, 2.5 hectares.
Rod, you might want to come back a bit. Yeah, come back a bit.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
that's good. Cool.
Between Kings and Cray, like shopping centre, Access Road, and Horse Park Drive. Community and the DSTD and the world at large is really expects from that investment, and to then allow for, as I say, those other directorates to proceed with their projects once the necessary infrastructure is put in place. So. There were some comments earlier, I think, about how are we looking at things holistically. Well, an estate development plan does that. It's looking at that precinct, how it's sort of connecting not only to the internal roads, but are there connections through to Horse Park Drive directly. So it's going to be an exercise that we want to involve people in. But for tonight, that's pretty much as much as I have to say. I'm sorry.
So you'll be protecting the National Bicentennial Trail, which goes through there, I believe?
Through the block itself.
Or goes one's adjacent to Horse Park Drive?
Oh, well, yeah, look, it's a 20-metre wide, planted verge along Horse Park Drive. And
Pre-duplication. And Horse Park Drive hasn't been duplicated, so we're right the verge that you want to the road. I mean, will you be protecting the National Bicentennial?
Noted. I didn't realise the National Capital, the National Trail went down that side of Horse Park Drive. Yeah, sure. No, I think that's good to understand. Thank you.
And at the moment, it goes a fair way into the walk, as far as well, in the end, it's a trail, which over
the Bicentennial National Trail, but it runs from Cooktown to Victoria. It's as I say, it's a trail where 2 or 3 horses can travel abreast. That's sort of the concept.
It might be on the other side of the road once it gets across. Many ideas.
Sure. Hi.
Hi. I think I heard you say you're proposing splitting or dividing the block up into 2 or more blocks. Have you done a study to suggest that that would be required or necessary?
No. Well, I'm saying that is the study that we're about to embark on. Is not to be confined, if you like, by what's there at the moment, but rather to step back and say, well, look, these are the uses, these are the public benefits. How do we best achieve that?
How would the public be able to contribute to this process?
Well, there'll be a consultation process, and people will be involved at an early stage. And ultimately, an EDP goes through a development approval process. So there's all of the pre-DA consultation, DA consultation attached to that. So it's quite a comprehensive process that people will have an opportunity to have a look at what's going on and to provide that input. Hi, Peter.
Hey Rob, thanks for coming along tonight. The indicative land release program associates 100 dwellings on one or maybe both blocks, and I can't remember. Is that up for grabs as well if the block boundaries are sort of a state of flux, or is that a hard number or a floor that it's at least this amount?
Look, there's some quite important interest in the site that probably go a little bit beyond a fairly crude number, if you like, that's sort of currently appearing in the ILRP. We'll see how spatially these other activities fit, and how circulation and how parking and all these other issues come together. And ideally, there'd be some residential development. Kingsland Parade frontage, for example, is an important part of that whole commercial precinct. I think the idea of having the ground floor active uses, and that may well be a health centre and other health facilities, but nevertheless, if there's an opportunity for some residential and it's not compromising other activities, then again, it's all part of that conversation. Hi.
Hi. To what extent will the case of concept plan inform, what goes forward? And if it's not going to inform what's going to go forward, how should residents have any faith in the concept plans, when the suburbs are created and built?
You probably know the concept plan better than I do, but look, at the time, I'm not sure whether the planner was a keen lawn bowler or exactly what the circumstances were. But look, I think efforts were made to interest the club sector in developing the bowling club, and some sort of community club generally, but there wasn't any success. That's my understanding of the history of it. And I think, look, there is an acknowledgement. There's been this long-standing expectation there'll be some sort of recreation facility there. Look, it's a fairly well understood need, I think. Sport and Rec is pushing the indoor sports facility thing as one of their important gaps in recreation facilities, and so they're part of this conversation as well around what can be done with that side.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, just to follow up. Thanks for answering that. Probably did as best as you could on that one. But then I guess the follow-up question is, if the blocks are being considered for subdivision, perhaps, would that potentially reduce the opportunity for recreation facilities? I mean, you can't necessarily fit a recreation facility in a small block.
Look, we're probably getting into a bit more detail than I really want to, but I think part of what we'd be thinking about is, look, again, very crudely and conceptually at least, do we want a big sports hall on Kingsland Parade? Probably not. Would it be more appropriate that it was at the back of the site, onto the Horse Park Drive edge, if you like? If so, how do we then access that, and how do we give it an address? Now, all of this stuff is just part of very much a sort of layering of priorities and constraint mapping and putting together something, not a single option, but a range of options, and saying, well, which one actually achieves, maximises the community benefits from the development of that site.
It's been a while. Can you confirm that what you're talking about is the handback site?
That's right,
handback
Maggie.
site,
It is, yeah.
Which was to be for community uses, facilities, etc. That's why it's handed back. Are you now saying, and what's the zoning on it?
It is commercial.
It's CZ1?
It might be CZ2. I'd have a look.
All right, but it was handed back to the government for commercial, for community. Are you now saying that the ACT government is looking at subdividing the block and selling some of it off for residential development to a developer?
No, I'm not saying
You
that. And
mentioned
I'm saying that there's three territory directorates interested in developing facilities on that land,
Yeah.
and that 3 into 2 doesn't go. So almost by definition, we're looking at some reconfiguration of blocks in order to accommodate the uses that we know of within government.
But you mentioned housing on that block.
Well, in the context of creating an edge to Kingsland Parade, and the fact that it is in the ILRP, and it's something that would be considered on its merits.
So the government might have a vested interest in the outcome of the current DA then, in the sense of achieving the
No, look, let's not go there, Maggie. I don't think so. Yes?
If it's commercially zoned, does that mean that community facilities can't be on that block? Are you looking for a club and specific?
No. Look, I think as I say, the bids are in, if you like, from agencies to do certain things. And look, if there's some tweaking of the territory plan requirements in order to achieve that, then that's again part of the conversation. But look, I think that within the current, I think whatever it is, CZ2 zoning, then what I've been alluding to is all permissible within that zoning.
Would that include something like, say, common ground? Would that be able to be delivered in?
Well, it's not where we're at the moment with everyone probably understands common ground as it exists at the moment, and there's opportunities for further extension to that should the building managers and think that that's a priority, but it's not part of the scope.
Just a clarification on something that you just brought up a second ago. For the life of me, I can't quite work out where the decision was made to actually include residential in this particular development. It just sort of appeared, and I think numerous times when the question has been directly asked, there's no other way to describe this specifically than ask, where did it come from, who approved it? We haven't received any specific sort of explanation as to why residential was chosen to be included in this community use site.
Well, the zoning isn't community facilities, so let's clear up that point. It's actually commercial, and the indicative land release program comes out annually, and it's part of the budget process.
So you said there were 3 directorates interested?
Yes.
And they are?
Jack's, Sport and Rec, and Health.
Who's
justice and community safety.
They do things like fire, ambulance, police.
So
I mean, it's just, you know, all of those three things, sport and rec, a Jack's facility, and sport and rec, Jack's
Health.
health, all of those are community use, not community facilities.
Housing not interested?
Well, housing, probably would be interested, maybe, but as I say, they're not the priority in the way we're considering the uses at the moment.
Because if there's going to be changes made to the codes to allow residential, then it would be nice to see something like build to rent or affordable housing rather than tiering.
Look, I think that's absolutely worth considering in the context of, well, once we've achieved our main objectives, what is then, if you like, some of the add-ons that are appropriate, and different forms of build to rent, affordable build to rent, etc. They're all things that are high priorities for the government, undoubtedly. I think we all understand that. Look, thanks. I think that's important. Okay, well, I'll stand up here for the next one as well.
One final question.
Sure.
Can you give me some timeframes for this process?
Look, we're really wanting to get started very shortly, but look, there's still some internal deliberations about how best to start the engagement. So look, in a way, I'm sort of speaking a little out of turn in telling you what I just have, but look, I'd been asked to come along and I accept that invitation. So look, that's it's a process which is about to kick off. Can I ask Elizabeth to come and join me, and we'll talk about the community centre.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having us here tonight. This is the third time that we've had the opportunity to present to the Community Council about the new community centre. Oh, thank you. This is the third time we've come to present to the Council about the new community centre. And it's a very exciting project, so I'm really looking forward to talking to you about it tonight. Is it possible to make it go full screen, or?
Yeah, that's the full screen because it's a PDF.
Oh, yep, okay.
Yeah, if you can just go view full screen.
That's okay. See, can you see the view? Oh, it's all right. Okay, so my name's Elizabeth Judd. I'm a director at Judd Studio, and we've been engaged to look at the feasibility for the new centre, the sort of spaces that need to be included in it, and also to assist in the analysis of the site location for the centre. So I'll take you through that this evening. I'll give you a quick update on where we're at with the vision and design principles. We have presented previously on this, so I'll be fast, although I note I've got a full hour that I could speak for, so we could have some fun this evening. I'll also take you through quickly where we got to in understanding the types of spaces that should be in the community centre and the sort of uses to include. We'll talk about what the site is that's been selected as the most appropriate site, and then take you through the proof of concept design that's been prepared, and finally talk a little about building facility management as well. And then there'll be time for questions too. So just firstly, in terms of how we've got to where we are at the moment, so commencing in June last year, we've had a number of conversations with key community stakeholders, and that's predominantly been community service providers as well as the Community Council as well. We've also visited a number of community centres within Canberra and then done desktop research, looked online at what's happening elsewhere in Australia and internationally. It was really important to have a look at how community centres are operating within Canberra, what's working and what's not. We looked at the best site for the location in the Gungahlin Town Centre and developed the proof of concept design. And all of that's been really important, really just to understand what the vision for the building is. So often a building like this is designed with a basic understanding of what sort of spaces should be included, and the government's taken the initiative here to think about what does the community really need, how is the community going to use those spaces, and how that can be delivered in the best possible way. And that's then informed the business case that's been submitted recently for the upcoming budget for the next stages of the project as well. And we're now considering the facility management and how best to have a successful outcome in terms of how the building is managed in the future. So this is just giving you an idea of who we've spoken to so far. So you can see on this side there's a significant number of community organisations that we've spoken to, either one-on-one or as part of group meetings. And we've also met with the newly formed Gungahlin Community Panel as well and had a session with them. We could probably have 3 times as many community organisations there in terms of, we know that there are a number of organisations that offer services in Gungahlin, but we were really pleased to be able to engage with these groups to give us a broad understanding of where the need is and the types of services that might be offered through the centre. And we also visited those community spaces. So there are a range of buildings there. Hopefully you can read, the text not too small there. But older community centres right up to ones that have been built really recently in Denman Prospect. So that was really great to see how those spaces were being used. And where that got us was to a pretty solid understanding of what the future uses would be for the centre. So as Rod mentioned, the government's done a lot of work looking at the need for community infrastructure in Gungahlin, which has driven this project. So where we see there's particular need and the uses that are going to be incorporated in the centre include a youth hub, art workshop spaces that include spaces for messy or wet arts like paints and things like that, and cleaner arts like arts and crafts. And those spaces also need to accommodate community sessions for vulnerable members of the community that use it in a therapeutic way as well. That there would be an exhibition space or a small gallery as part of it for community art groups. That there would be space for counselling for the local social and wellbeing services. That there would be spaces to be hired for training or meetings, public meetings, and also private smaller business meetings. That there would be spaces for small businesses to work out of, so a community work hub. Importantly, that the community centre would have space for celebrations, community functions, family functions, things like that, and that would include a commercial style kitchen. So we heard loud and clear that food is often really central to community celebrations, and we've previously spoken about the incredible diversity and cultural diversity within the Gungahlin community, so we really want to be able to celebrate that diversity, and so much of that is through food as well. That there should be a space for children to play, not necessarily a huge playground, but at least a space for children to play, so that when these other functions are happening, kids can be there and be safe and be having fun. That there would be laundry and shower facilities for people who are sleeping rough, and importantly what came through the consultation, that would really be for young people who are sleeping rough, acknowledging that Common Ground is also in the near vicinity, and that offers those sort of services as well. And that there would be space also for community singing, exercise, dance sessions, practices, that sort of thing, and potentially a community cafe as well. We've prepared pretty comprehensive spatial requirements as part of a functional design brief. Effectively, that means that we've gone through all of those different uses that I just talked about, worked out all the spaces that exist with those, and then as a practice, we've looked at the square metre area for that, what sort of storage is required, what the look and feel should be it be carpet, should it be a timber floor, how high should the ceilings be, that sort of thing. It's not about design, it's about how a space would be used and making sure that that's articulated. So I'm not going to take you through the pages and pages of that, but you can get a sense of all the different spaces that would be included in that. And as I said, that includes things like storage. Really interesting to hear about the police station and storage. That's so often an issue. So we've taken into account things like that. And hopefully this will jump ahead or not. There we go. So that's led us to develop the place vision and the aspirations and design and siting principles, it should be. I have presented these before, so I know there's a lot of text on this screen, but really this is just about acknowledging that this building has to be something that belongs to the community, that all members of the community feel safe and welcome, that's an equitable space and an accessible space, that it demonstrates sustainability and resilience in terms of what materials are used and the sort of sustainability elements within it, that it's close to other community services, that it's a reflection of connection to country, but also that it's a reflection of connecting to the diversity in cultural heritage and the diversity of peoples that live within Gungahlin. So it's really important that this is a place for the Gungahlin people, a landmark within the Gungahlin town centre. In thinking about that, we then looked at what land was available within the town centre itself for this community centre. In considering selecting the site, we did engage, as I said, with all of those stakeholders and went back to them with regard to the site. We engaged with the Community Council through the community panel as well. So there's a lot of discussion about which would be the best site for the community centre. There's a lot of built land already in Gungahlin, so the pink sites are the areas that are actually currently available that haven't either been sold or under development. And what we did then is look at those sites in the context of community facility location guidelines. We also considered the current planning strategies, sustainability strategies, and we spoke to the panel and to stakeholders again about where they thought it should be. So there's a lot of colours and circles and things here, but essentially the smaller circles represent a 200 metre walking radius and the larger circles represent 400 metres. Phil talked before about 400 metres is actually quite a long way when you're trying to walk somewhere. So 200 metres is the preferred distance for walking under the community centre location guidelines. Those guidelines also talk about the proximity to other community facilities and amenity within the town centre, and having proximity to retail core, contributing to open space, contributing to a vibrant town centre. So these are all things we considered. You can see that red here is where the existing retail space is within the Gungahlin town centre, and these spaces here as the future Gungahlin East area, which is a mixed use. Where we got to was that the site that was actually located directly within the centre of the town centre was the best site for this community centre because it had ticks against all of those elements in terms of proximity to existing retail, really great proximity to light rail, bus interchange and public transport generally. Great proximity to other community services, so you've got the Gungahlin College here, the library, you've got government services here, common ground here, and it's also located within a vibrant area and can contribute to the vibrancy of that area. So Gungahlin Place is already becoming an established urban space, and there's real capacity for this to contribute to that and really drive the vibrancy there. Also noting that this area is all going to be redeveloped. There's currently new apartments there. There'll be a new business and training college here, which our practice has been involved in the design of. Number of apartments and mixed use areas through here. So a lot of vibrancy through here, which is going to drive pedestrian traffic and real interest in what's happening in the centre. We know that there was a lot of discussion about potentially having the site here in Gungahlin East, where there's going to be a lot of development, and also where there'll be this new urban linear park. We did look really carefully at that as a site, and what was interesting was it didn't hit as many benefits as this site in terms of proximity, obviously to existing facilities, but also there was feedback about the community centre needing to feel that it belonged to the community, and that if it was located here to the east, that it would detract it from the centre of the centre, and that it may feel more owned by the new residents here rather than being owned by the community in general. So we really took that to heart in terms of creating a space for the community centre to really feel part of the whole Gungahlin community. So that's that site a little bit more close up for those of you who aren't as familiar with it. At the moment, Gungahlin Place is just the grass there, and there's some established gum trees through here, and it's located as part of a bigger block, which does have the park and ride parking there at the moment. So the intention is that this block, block 1, would be subdivided, so this component of it would then be the base for where the building could be, and Gungahlin Place then becomes a location for some type of outdoor recreation activity that's linked to the community centre. So the practice has then done what we call proof of concept. So this is a pretty picture of a potential building. This is not the final building, and it's not intended to be the final building. The purpose of doing this was to take all of that spatial information, to put it then into an imaginary building to make sure that it fits within the block, that we can actually deliver the spaces to the scale that we should, that we have lots of access to natural light so that it's sited appropriately. And then, most importantly, that then provides a base for a quantity surveyor to come in and cost it, which then informs the budget process. So that's why this design's been done. As I said, we're looking at subdividing that site, considering where the existing tree is so that we can retain that existing gum tree, that we look at the current parking spaces that are provided, make sure that they are retained and then enhanced so that there's also additional parking for the community centre to be provided. We also considered, as I said, the open space then becoming a recreation space linked to the community centre, and that there's a really strong address to the street because this is going to be a landmark for the town centre, so it needs to address the street properly, both to Gungahlin Place and Efkapides Street. So where we arrived at was that there would be, this is the tree. As you can see there, there's quite a large gum tree there, which is a really lovely asset for the site as well. Great. So you might have seen before we were proposing 2 buildings, so one to the north of the tree and one to the south. And the idea is that you create a courtyard in the centre, you have a youth hub to the north. I think there should be, sorry, we've jumped. There we go. A youth hub to the north and the community centre proper to the south. The youth hub would be a single-storey building and the community centre would be 2 storeys. We did look at the potential to have the youth hub within Gungahlin Place itself, but there were 2 issues with that. One was that there's a restriction on the gross floor area for any building within this space, so it really restricted the size of the youth hub itself, which wasn't preferable. But also there is economic benefit to having a 2-storey building within this site too, in terms of funding as well. So there's a real benefit to co-locating. And the other really incredible benefit that there is that it links the youth hub to the community centre, and the youth services providers were really, they emphasised how important it was for young people to feel part of the community. Seems obvious, but by having the building on the same site, just across the courtyard, they've got their own space, its own identity, but it's still linked to the community centre. So it's saying to young people, you are part of the community, come and be part, share the community centre, but you've still got your own space. A bit like having a granny fat in the back garden, I guess, for the teenagers to be in. So the ground floor of the community centre itself, the intention is that there would be an entrance either from Gungahlin Place or from a new laneway that would be created. That this yellow section here would actually be, it would serve as a foyer, but it also becomes a bit of a default function space or entertainment space as well. So it's a space for people to come and meet and gather. Then you've got a large function room here facing the courtyard, opening out there to a barbecue area. This is quite large, I think it's around 200 square metres. So that would accommodate quite a significant gathering of about 200 people, but it could also be divided into 3 to have smaller rooms for the community to hire. A large commercial kitchen, a commercial cafe facing Gungahlin Place, and as I said, we're anticipating a lot more development along Gungahlin Place, so there'd be a lot more foot traffic than there is now. A small community gallery, which then opens out into this central space, so really great for art showings, book readings, things like that. Administration area for the building management, and quite a large amenity space as well. So this would include a child changing room, an adult changing room, non-binary toilets, men and women's toilets, and accessible toilets. So really great amenity there for people using the function spaces or using the outdoor spaces. And then on the upper level, you can either come up the stairs or use a lift. Again, this is not a final design, this is a proof of concept. So we know that it's not perfect. The blue areas here are intended to be the arts studios. So you've got a really large wet arts area for painting, which could be divided into two. Another space for dry arts or crafts. Lots of storage, an ante-room, so a lounge for people to sit and have a cup of tea while they're doing their art classes. And a digital arts hub as well, so ideally for people to learn how to do digital animation, that sort of thing. This orange area is a community work hub, so a space you could actually go to hire a desk or hire some meeting rooms. If you're working from home and you just need a space away from home to work. The green area here is intended to be the community facilities, community services, so a space where you can go to have counselling for vulnerable people, either in small groups or larger groups. We've already had feedback with regard to that it would be really great to have some outdoor balcony spaces there. So we're taking that on board. But importantly, we've incorporated a separate waiting room. So if you're going to meet with a counsellor, you don't have to stand in the middle of a public foyer. You can actually go up and have a bit of privacy while you're waiting. And then office space for those community services as well. And then this space here is an upstairs function room, maybe a dance room, exercise room, different flooring. And we heard that you need different flooring to do Tai Chi or Taekwondo, that sort of thing. So we've taken that into account. And then the youth hub itself is on the ground floor, so it's single storey. We're anticipating one really big room in the middle, which would be the group lounge with tables and chairs, ping pong tables, pool tables, that sort of thing. The entrance would be on the corner of FKPD's and Gungahlin Place. So we really wanted to make that a space where students walking down from the college could actually walk and come straight into the youth hub. That it would include a quiet space for kids who just found it a bit too noisy in the group room. They could go into a quieter area, a space for individual one-on-one counselling, a space where the youth workers could actually see what's happening in the group lounge, could see what's happening in the courtyard, can see what's happening on the basketball court or whatever across the road. A group kitchen, a digital hub there as well, so a place where digital music can be made, or a recording studio type thing, and also the shower and laundry facilities there for kids sleeping rough, so they can go and wash their clothes if they need to. There's also been discussion about whether that should incorporate some type of community pantry or emergency pantry as well for kids that are struggling. And importantly, that all opens out into the courtyard, so the people using the youth hub can really engage with what's happening in that courtyard space, which would include hopefully a yarning circle, some type of playground or play area, which ideally would be a space that teenagers feel happy about being in as well, outdoor community garden, and then potentially a link across, unlikely actually to have a pedestrian crossing there, but potentially a link across to this new recreation area, which might include a basketball court, might include a small skate area, hasn't been determined, but a space where kids can just hang out, and a really great extension from Gungahlin Place. We've had feedback, very important feedback, that this needs to be really safe in terms of traffic, so we're taking that on board, thinking about creative ways to fence that so that kids can't just fall backwards into the street. Hope they don't do it, but we appreciate it can happen. And also the types of seating and things that could happen through there and shading. Importantly, similar to the building design, landscape design hasn't been done at all, so this is just indicative areas that we're looking at, but there will be detailed landscape design done as part of this, and all of that design work will take into account those principles and vision that I pointed to at the start to inform the type of the design and how that will happen. In terms of the look and feel, we've done these renderings. It all looks very Scandinavian and clean at the moment. As I said, this is just proof of concept, but really it's just to give you a sense of massing, the scale of the building and the amount of natural light that could be available. So we're anticipating that these spaces, these function spaces, would open out onto the courtyard. There'd be a lot of light for the community work hub above, the dance studio above, counselling spaces above. So you get a sense of how they might look out onto that space. And similarly for the youth hub, I also think the tree's probably not quite as tall and skinny as that. The youth hub similarly will look out onto the courtyard. But what we're really excited about is the opportunities for some form of cooperative design, or really working with particular interest groups on how the building might actually look and feel. So we're starting to have conversations about artworks on the walls, how the entry spaces might feel, how the facade might work. So we're really excited to now explore how the design is actually going to be eventuated, working with the community and all the cultural groups within the community, so that it really feels owned by the community. So finally, on to the facilities management for the building. So the intention is that the building itself would be owned by ACT Government Property Group. So what that means is that ACT Government would coordinate a tender for the overall management of the building, and it would manage major maintenance issues to do with the building, but that the facilities manager would actually have responsibility for minor management, the day-to-day costs, that sort of thing. That they would also likely have a possible, term of around 3 years, and if they're doing a good job, then that could potentially be renewed. There might be separate management tender for the youth centre versus the community centre, so there may be 2 management groups for the centre across it. We understand and really appreciate that Gungahlin is unique and really special in that the community service providers within Gungahlin work really well collaboratively together. So it's really important that whoever is managing, or whichever group's managing this building, is doing that in a collaborative way with the other community organisations, so that nobody feels locked out from using this building. And so in order for that to have real focus, the government's considering community endorsement, the community organisation endorsements of the key performance indicators that would be used to assess that tender. So the community services groups would be involved potentially within the that tender process, which is a really great way to make sure that those priorities are taken into account. And certainly successful management of the building and the successful tenderer would have to demonstrate that the community sector access is a priority, that there's really strong promotion of all of the facilities that are being offered within the centre and the events, so that the whole community understands what's going to be offered there. And we've heard also loud and clear that that should be online, as well as just face-to-face flyers and things like that. That data collection is really important, reporting is really important, so that it's very clear then to show the benefit of the centre, what's working and what's not. That there, as I said, it should be an online booking system, that the charging structure needs to be affordable and fair, so that community groups that can't afford as much as other groups can still access the centre, and that it will really maximise the use of the centre in the evenings and also on the weekends, so you don't get dead spaces, so that it's really, really strongly used, which I think most people would say it will definitely, because there's such need. So that's the briefish overview. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Happy to take any questions, or if you want to just provide comments or feedback on what you've heard, that would be fine as well. As I said, we'll continue to now look at the building facilities management options. We'll also await the announcements with regard to the budget in terms of the next steps, which Rod may go into, and then start to look at the detailed design of this. So thank you very much.
I'll open the floor for the questions. We might need to swap the microphone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been thinking fairly carefully about the divide in the road, and there's a part of it on the right-hand side and a part of it on the left-hand side. And I'm assuming the reason for that is to preserve the parking on the left-hand side that exists, the park and ride. Is there any possibility to move them to the left and put the parking on the right-hand side instead of having the buildings sort of split in two? So yeah, just back that slide. So yeah, so the recreational space is on the right-hand side. So if you move the left building to the left and move the recreational space to the left, and you change that recreational space on the right-hand side to parking, then you would have a connected...
Sorry, in the middle of Gungahlin Place. It would be hideously ugly.
What? A recreational space or the parking?
No, put parking in the middle of Gungahlin Place. You'd have
Well, there's a recreational space that's going to be there as well, so, you know.
No, but if you put parking in there, you've got traffic on both sides.
Well, you guys are from the public transport, so you guys don't like parking at all,
No,
like
sorry,
open air
I
car
live in
parking. So.
Gungahlin. I go to that area regularly in my car, if that's all right with you, even though I am a member of the Public Transport Association.
Yeah.
Putting parking in the middle of Gungahlin Place there would be an abomination. It would ruin the linear park line that runs through there, and it's an appalling idea.
Well, I had
If you want
this.
to move the whole thing across to the left, sure, make that argument, but don't put parking in the middle of Gungahlin Place. It will be unsafe, dangerous and unsightly.
Oh, well, yeah, fair point. Maybe just move it all to the left.
Look, can I just sort of talk a little bit about that in
Right.
part? And I thank you, Henry. Part of what we saw with the type of activities here is that it's actually a teenager type space, if you like. There's nothing else along the linear park that really sort of fills that need. The fact that it's we've got a community centre here, there's a lane of traffic to cross, and I know buses are currently laying over on that curb as well, which look, in an ideal world they'll relocate, but look, I can't give any undertakings there. But look, the safety issue of crossing over 3.5 metres in what's generally a slow speed environment, and we're talking about not young children here, we're talking teenagers. I don't know that there's a terrible sort of safety risk, but the fact that we're actually sort of creating a node with a teenage focus, I just sort of see that as a positive thing.
I would actually say putting a well-designed and safe recreation space in there for teenagers would be a really good use of that site, because otherwise it's going to sit there looking like lawn for a very long time. You've got the children's playground to the immediate north, I guess, and so that gives you a bit of an extension, if you like, in terms of age and maybe family structure. Mum and dad got the young kids over there, the older kids down here, but still we have the maintained site one. You just have to manage access across road issues that well been done with
Shared zone.
shared zone arrangements as opposed to putting it all up.
Make a shared zone.
Sorry?
It's very hard to make a shared zone where the sharing includes buses.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. You've got buses going straight down either side of the street, and you're all in favour of that, and that's fine. But I'm just suggesting that if it was moved across.
Sorry, you're not in favour of buses going down the streets?
No. You're very defensive. I understand that you want something, and that's okay. But I'm just suggesting that you
look,
move to the left. Maybe that's basically the use of something else.
So look, I'll just explain something about land economics. This is probably the most valuable undeveloped site in Gungahlin town centre. There's I think an 8 or 10 story height limit. There's been a lot of negotiation around excising this end of the site for community facilities, but the argument that we've put to the government is that the access overrides the land value. So to contemplate putting a teenage play area in there, it sort of doesn't really make much sense, to be honest, in terms of city building. I think there's other things that could happen on that land that would be seen as having more public benefit.
And I'll still come back to Gungahlin Place is a linear path through the centre of Gungahlin. We talk about one being further to the east, but it's to do us some more green, and I'd encourage you to put as much green in that centre as possible, as well as the basketball court or whatever it turns out to be. But I think that there will be a good flow through the centre of Gungahlin.
It's certainly in keeping with the strategy for Gungahlin Place. You're right. That this was intended to be a linear park. So at the moment it's just grass. You don't want to walk through it. So it creates an incentive to visit it and to walk along. And it will be a different area as well, because this will be built rather than empty as well.
I think one of the biggest challenges for certainly most people coming out to believe this game, it's a median strip. It's a really big median strip. And so access becomes a real issue. I know the government in general has steered away from improve access, but I think the location is great. I sat in on the active travel feasibility study for the Gungahlin Town Centre, and one of the big problems that actually Gungahlin's pretty well served for bike access. Getting the last couple of 100 metres into the town centre is an absolute nightmare. Partly because the intersections are extremely poorly designed for almost everything: buses, cars, and people, and cycling. And it gets worse when we try to mix those modes. And those particular intersections on the corners of that block are some of the worst in Gungahlin. So I don't think it. I'm not sure it's possible to manage that well without having a pretty serious look at how that's going to be dealt with. And certainly, please talk to the active travel people, because a path through that median strip was one of the ways that you could improve access into the town centre. And in theory, there'd be enough space to do that in a mode-separated kind of environment.
Well, that would enhance that use anyway. To have bicycles running through there with kids doing things through there as well is not it's a good use for the site.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They would complement each other.
It's the classic case of no one has a conversation about, please don't forget about separated bike paths. So people quickly get into the town centre and ideally put their bike into the non-existent bike locker and so on. Then they can just jump on some other form of transport. At the risk of making your life harder by adding yet more stakeholders, please go and talk about active travel.
Noted. Thanks, Peter. Yeah.
So you were also talking about the community centre, community kind of facility there to run some of the events and stuff. So how big that's going to be, and with, I get it with the youth, probably they can catch the bus and stuff, but with the community centre, we expect the families to probably come and, the multicultural, most of the, with the Gungahlin community, with the demographic, it's usually the evening functions where you expect many people to come. So how many people, or what kind of facility would that be? It's going to be a big one, or do you have any car parks in the facilities, or?
So the community space that we have at the moment for rent, or potentially for rent, would be this space here, and then the space upstairs as well. This space, I think, is around 200 square metres, and you could fit sort of 150 people there standing, plus flow out into that. So the intention isn't that this is a space for 500 people to gather. There have been discussions about really large, significant function areas elsewhere in Canberra for that to happen for the multicultural community in Canberra. In thinking about this, it was determined pretty early on that this couldn't be the be-all and end-all for everything. So we had to accommodate so many different things within this building that we had to decide what was the most likely use. And from discussions, it seemed like a space around that size would service a lot of different types of functions that people would have. So around 100, 150 people in that space with use of the commercial kitchen and then flowing out into the courtyard. And then the anticipation is that there would be some car parking spaces there dedicated to the community centre that would predominantly be accessible parking. And then particularly in the evenings, you have access to the significant public car park that's to the left. And under the territory plan, that has to be retained to have public car parking, even if it is developed in the future. So we would anticipate that on the weekends and in the evenings, when the community centre is being used more heavily by the community, that those spaces would be available as well, plus the access to public parking. Sorry?
So you were talking about subsurface parking or parking in the future?
In the future, I would assume that would be basement parking or...
It's a condition of the lease.
It's a territory plan requirement to maintain that existing number of public car park spaces. So obviously there's a period during development where that parking is lost, and that usually causes quite a bit of grief, but ultimately, that parking is assured. The other thing, of course, is that... I don't think TCCS want to give that up anytime soon. So, I just think that's I wouldn't be stressing about that.
Has anybody considered putting parking right underground?
Oh, well, sure. No, I think ultimately that's what that site would be. Now, look, it's happened now in Belconnen, if people have actually are aware of that. There's the Belconnen Community Centre, there's been that surface car park, and then the community bus station, sort of slightly below that. That has been sold, and it's a bit of a mega development going on that land, but it's including replacement of those 300 odd parking spaces, which will be either underground or in a podium. If you have a look at a lot of buildings, not all the parking is entirely underground. A lot of them is within a podium that is sort of wrapped with other development around the edge. So long term, and I mean this might be in 20 years' time, that's what it would become.
Because where this building's proposed, that's very congested around that area already.
Congested with different.
Scooters with people with bikes. I don't know, like I drive around all times of the day and night. And it's pretty congested around there already, let alone the parking.
Was there any other places being considered for these ones?
For the community centre?
Yeah.
Well, they were the range of sites that was on slide 4 or whatever. All of those pink shaded sites, both looking at Gungahlin East, and so these were the sites considered for the community centre, but the locational guidelines for community centres are pretty stringent in terms of access to public transport and to other town centre facilities, which narrowed the discussion down pretty much to that site. If you